You're not lazy. You're not unconscious. You're not someone who avoids the work or skips the hard parts. If anything, you're the opposite. You spent years doing the work and trying to contribute to the world in a way that feels aligned and integrous. And yet, it keeps happening. The money coming in doesn't reflect what you're putting out. The unexpected expenses keep piling up and running your bank account dry. You watch someone else get the opportunity, sign the deal, land the client, get handed something that looks completely effortless. And you feel something in that moment that you probably wouldn't say out loud. Something that sounds like, I've been working just as hard. I've been doing everything right. Why does it always seem to flow to everybody else and not me? I've been there. I know the feeling. When I was at the peak of my college hockey career, I remember watching teammates and friends and guys I grew up playing with signing professional contracts worth millions of dollars. And I was genuinely happy for them to see their hard work pay off. But underneath the happiness, there was another layer. Something quieter and something a little bit more uncomfortable. Something that said, I put in just as much. I work just as hard. Why do they get rewarded like that? No contract on the table in front of me. Still paying off my student loans, still grinding, still struggling, still giving everything I had. Most people have a version of that story. It's not always about money or contracts. Sometimes it's watching someone get the relationship that seems to fall into their lap. The job offer they weren't even looking for. The business that takes off when yours is still struggling. The version of life that seems to come easy to other people no matter how hard you have to seem to work for yours. And that's what I want to talk about today, because the conventional answer of work harder and want it more, believe in yourself, get better at manifesting, none of these actually touch what's going on. There's something operating much deeper beneath the surface that most people never look at. And it's specifically common in people who are very conscious, very self-aware, and genuinely trying to live and work with integrity. This is about why receiving is hard. Not just money, but receiving in general. Recognition, ease, good fortune, abundance in whatever form it takes. And why the very things that make you a good person, a thoughtful person, a person doing the real inner work, can sometimes be the exact things that are running an unconscious resistance to letting good things in. Let me name some of the subtle ways this shows up, because it's rarely dramatic. It's not an intrusive thought of, I believe I don't deserve good things. Nobody really thinks that consciously. It's much quieter. It's a slight discomfort when somebody asks you for your rate. That half-second pause where something tightens before you say the number. And then afterward, even when they say yes, even when the answer is good, there's still this weird emotional residue, a guilt that you can't quite explain, like you charged too much or asked for too much or you were a burden, even when you weren't. It's the overgiving, staying at the office late because your boss asked you to, even though you know you should be getting paid for it and you're not. Staying on a sales call for 40 minutes longer to try to justify your price. Adding things that weren't in the original agreement because you feel like what you provided wasn't enough. Discounting before anybody asked. Justifying your price before anybody pushed back. It's the suspicion of ease. When something goes smoothly, when money comes in without a fight, when an opportunity shows up without you having to grind for it, there's almost a distrust, like it's too good, like something must be wrong. There's a cost coming or a catch that you can't see yet. And underneath all of it, if you get really quiet and really honest, there's often a belief that sounds something like, I have to earn this. I have to prove myself. I don't get to just receive. That's not how it works for me. That belief is not conscious. You wouldn't write it down as a value or tell somebody that that's how you see yourself, but it's there. It's running. And it's been running for a long time. Here's what I see happening in a lot of deeply conscious people. At some level, and this is the part that most people never look at, receiving feels dangerous. Not dangerous like a physical threat, but dangerous in a more subtle way, like it costs something that you can't afford to lose. The pattern I see most often goes something like this. Somewhere in the wiring, there's an equation that says, if I receive too much, I might become indebted. And if I'm indebted, I lose my freedom. And if I lose my freedom, it means I'm controlled. And so the system quietly keeps a cap on how much comes in, how much money, how much joy, how much abundance, not because you don't want it, but because some part of you believes that abundance will cost you your integrity, your independence, your sense of self and who you are. And then there's the flip side of that, which is often even harder to look at. It's the idea that struggle itself feels safe. That striving, grinding, being in the process of working hard towards something, that has become so familiar that ease feels wrong, suspicious, like you're not doing enough to deserve it yet. Like the moment you relax, the bottom will fall out and it'll all come crashing down. And I want to ask you something. I want you to actually sit with it for a second before you answer. Is this true for you? What would you lose if abundance actually arrived? Give it a second and let it sit. What comes up for you? Because for a lot of people, the honest answer is uncomfortable. You lose the identity of the person who's working towards something, who's always struggling and always striving and overcoming. You lose the story of the one who struggles but keeps going even though they're up against all the odds. You might even lose the justification for playing small, because if the resources were there, you'd have to show up fully in your life. You'd have to step into your power. You'd have to be seen completely. You'd have to be accountable for what you're really capable of. And that, a lot of times, is more terrifying for people than staying exactly where they are. And this isn't a judgment. I've lived inside of this for a long time. And the reason it persists, the reason insight alone can't clear it, is because this pattern isn't living in your thinking. It's stored in your body, in your nervous system, as emotional memory, in the cells and the tissues, in the reflexes that fire before your conscious mind really has any say in the matter. And there are two reasons these are harder to shift than people expect. The first is that they're usually inherited, not chosen. The scripts we absorb growing up around money, around worth, around receiving, these were inherited patterns from the people and the environment we grew up in. You know we can't afford that. People like us don't have things handed to them. Your father worked himself to the bone so you could have this life. Nobody in this family gets to be too successful or shine too bright. Any of those sound familiar? Some of these were spoken directly, but most of them were just the emotional atmosphere that we grew up breathing. We absorbed them before we had the capacity to question them. And because they were absorbed that early, they don't feel like beliefs. They just feel like, this is how it is for me. The second reason is one that I think about a lot, and it has to do with the spiritual reasons that run way deeper than the conscious mind can comprehend sometimes. I believe we come here to learn specific lessons, to have specific experiences. And I think some of us, the ones that feel this pattern most acutely, often chose to learn whether we could hold our own worth when the world wasn't reflecting it back. Whether we could trust our value when no one was paying for it. Whether we could stay coherent in the face of a world that seemed to say, not you, not yet. You're different. You don't belong. That's a profound lesson to take on. And if it's true, if at some level we chose this curriculum, then it's not a punishment. It's not a sign that something is wrong with you. It's a sign that you were trying to learn something important from the inside out that couldn't be learned any other way. But here's a shift that really matters. If you chose it, then the lesson doesn't have to run forever. And the moment you can see this pattern as something you're carrying rather than something you are, your relationship to it will change automatically. Now, I want to do something together, because explanations are one thing, but experience is another. Because this pattern doesn't live in your thinking, and it won't shift through thinking alone. So let's try a short exercise together to help clear this at the level of the breath, the body, the nervous system. I want you to sit straight up if you can. Place your right hand over your heart and let your left palm face upward and open, like you're ready to receive something. And we're going to move through a simple breath sequence. 4 counts in, 4 counts hold, 6 counts out, 2 counts hold, and I'll give you something to focus on at each stage. Let's begin. Inhale slowly for 4 counts. And as you breathe in, say silently to yourself, I inhale trust. Hold for 4 counts and say silently, I release the need to earn my worth. And exhale slowly for 6 counts. As you breathe out, say quietly, I receive fully. I serve clearly. Hold for 2 counts at the bottom, saying silently to yourself, I am safe to receive. Let's do that again. Inhale, I inhale trust. Hold, I release the need to earn my worth. Exhale, I receive fully. I serve clearly. Hold, I am safe to receive. One more time. Inhale, I inhale trust. Hold, I release the need to earn my worth. Exhale, I receive fully. I serve clearly. And hold, I am safe to receive. And let your breathing return to normal. And notice what that was like. Some of you felt something loosen. Some of you felt resistance, a tightness, a voice that said, this is silly, or this won't work for me. Whatever you felt, this is real information. The resistance, especially, because that's the pattern showing up in real time, doing exactly the thing that we've been talking about. So I'm not going to promise you that working on this one time will make money fall out of the sky. That's not what this is about. And if that's what you wanted, you probably wouldn't be here. You'd be doing somebody else's $27 program that tells you that you're going to make $10K in your first 30 days. Something inside of you has been trying to get to the bottom of this for a long time now. And you know that's less about the physical dollars and more about the internal experience that you can have as a result. So what I can tell you is what actually shifts when this pattern starts to clear, because I've watched it happen in people and I've experienced it myself. The guilt after somebody pays you starts to go quiet. Not immediately, but over time as you work through this, as you act and move forward with consistency, the weird residue after a transaction isn't there in the way that it used to be. You name your rate and you don't feel like you have to justify it. You don't have to beg, you don't have to ask. You complete the work and you don't feel the compulsion to add 3 more things that nobody asked for. Decisions come from a different place. Instead of, do I deserve this? The question becomes, is this right? Is this aligned? And there's a trust that you'll be taken care of, that your needs will be met. That's a completely different relationship with your own choices. The grinding quality of life softens, not because you stop working hard, but because you're no longer fighting yourself at the same time you're working. The part of you that was quietly capping your own reception, quietly creating the friction, the income ceiling, the delays, the why not me, why everybody else, that part starts to settle. And ease stops feeling suspicious. Things work out, and instead of waiting for the other shoe to drop, you can just let them work out and be grateful. Not naively, not blindly, not without discernment, but without the background program running that says, this will never last. This isn't really mine. Something must be off. Something must be wrong. That's not a small thing. That's a fundamentally different way of moving through life, and it's possible for you. Now, what I've described today, the quiet guilt, the inherited scripts, the unconscious equation that equates receiving with losing something. This is a pattern that lives below the level where most approaches to change are aimed. You can't think your way out of it. You can't strategy your way out of it. You can't hard work your way out of it. It responds to a different kind of attention. At the level of structure, at the level of what's actually stored in your body and in your nervous system. At the root, not the surface. And that's the work that I find most interesting, is figuring out how things work, how people work, and how to get to the root of it so we can actually change it without the effort, without the striving, without the struggling. Not helping people layer better habits on top of old structures, but helping them actually shift the structure itself. So the downstream of their life changes, not because they forced it, but because the thing that's generating it is now different. So if what I'm describing here, the idea that something structural is running beneath the surface of the patterns that you keep experiencing, and you want to get to the bottom of it, if that resonates with you, I made a longer, more comprehensive video that goes deeper into exactly what that structure looks like and why it persists even in people who have done a lot of work on themselves. I'll link it here at the end of this video. The work begins when you're ready.